After being a relative nobody just 1 year ago, is Paul Watson up next for the Toronto Raptors? Let's get into it. Welcome to Amateur Sports, where we post NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors 4 days a week on the channel: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if it is your first time here with me today and you like what you see, you want more of myself talking about the Toronto Raptors in these kind of vlog podcast type things, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. We just hit 800 subscribers, looking to make our way to 900 and beyond. But on to today's topic. The man Paul Watson is the center of attention for today. Coming off a video where, I don't really like going at some comments I had, getting frustrated, but I was a little bit upset about disrespect towards Pascal Siakam, but more to an upbeat topic today, talking about Paul Watson's potential in the NBA with the Toronto Raptors. Because a year ago, nobody knew who this guy was. And honestly, I'm going to be honest, midway through the season, I still wasn't sure about this guy. I saw he was putting up decent numbers with the 905, but at his age, 25 years old, I wasn't completely convinced about what Paul Watson had to offer. But seeing more of himself in the G League, seeing a little bit of his brief stints in the NBA with the Toronto Raptors, I'm pretty convinced about what this guy can bring, and I'm very hopeful for Paul Watson for his time with the Toronto Raptors, because this guy is showing signs to be somebody who can contribute to this contending NBA roster with the Toronto Raptors. So if you don't know where Paul Watson came from, he was playing briefly in Europe before signing for the Westchester Knicks in the G League draft, and after a couple seasons there, the Raptors acquired the rights to him, and he played with the Raptors 905 for the tail end of 2019, and then right at the start of 2020, his career kind of took a turn for the better. He got a 10-day contract with the Atlanta Hawks, where he only featured in 2 games and didn't register a point in those 2 games, but somehow, some way, the Raptors were convinced at that point that they needed to keep this guy. Maybe they were kind of waiting too long, and then the Atlanta Hawks seized up the opportunity, but the Raptors were not willing to lose him again, because after getting released by the Atlanta Hawks at the end of his 10-day contract on January 15th, 2020, the Raptors signed him to a 2-way deal, playing in the G League, but also being there for the Toronto Raptors when they needed him, which typically they didn't. But near the end of the season, this is where he started to get a bit of credit, a bit of fame, bit more fame at least, because he started to play in these NBA games, like against the Milwaukee Bucks, like against the Philadelphia 76ers, in that crazy finish, involving Stanley Johnson. What an insane game. And then the last game of the season. This is the breakout game. You got to remember this game. Toronto Raptors last game of the season against the Denver Nuggets. Sure, both teams were playing a lot of bench pieces, but Paul Watson comes off the bench for 27 minutes, 22 points. What a performance from Paul Watson. I don't care. It's against some bench pieces. This guy made the most of that opportunity, and it had Nick Nurse talking about his future with the franchise. Nick Nurse saying that this guy, Paul Watson, is in the future plans of the Toronto Raptors, and you can clearly see why for what this guy has to offer. You look at his G League stats, putting up nearly 20 points per game while also averaging just under 7 rebounds and the 2 assists. Also doing so very efficiently. 49% from the field, 42% from 3. So there's a lot to like about this guy. Playing as a shooting guard, can also play as a small forward, listed as 6'7", has the height to play both of those positions. It is exactly what the Raptors need in their rotation. Can Paul Watson take this jump? Can he go from this 2-way contract guy and be a guy who's a staple in the NBA? Because even in the games where we were actually rotating pieces off the bench, like Malcolm Miller, who I don't think should get any minutes really, or O'Shea Brissett, who needs to get a little bit less minutes. I don't like when O'Shea Brissett's playing like 20 minutes a game, but if you give him like some brief stints, he's got the hustle, he's got the desire. I like a little bit what I see from O'Shea Brissett. Whenever you saw guys like that enter the court, you never saw Paul Watson get on the court. It was always, like I said, Malcolm Miller, O'Shea Brissett, maybe some other guys. Maybe this is going to be different. Maybe Paul Watson is going to be that guy starting to get minutes. Or maybe Paul Watson is all of a sudden going to be in a bit of the plan for the Toronto Raptors, because having lost our 4th choice in the guard depth Terrence Davis, or it seems like we're going to lose him. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Just let me touch on this. I don't really want to jump to conclusions about Terrence Davis, but it seems pretty likely that he's going to be found guilty in these charges he's facing. I've done a full video on the Terrence Davis allegations if you want to check that out. I don't want to get into it too much today. But when it comes to Terrence Davis, I'll just touch on it briefly. Again, the Raptors are a progressive organization, and they have their values, and you can't stray away from your values. This is a guy that, if he's found guilty, you cannot have on your NBA roster. For that reason, if he gets cut, if he gets traded for some reason, if somebody wants him on their team, I just hope he's not in the NBA if he's found guilty. Regardless, the Raptors lose Terrence Davis. Can Paul Watson come in and fill that void? Let's say we don't want to go after a guy in free agency. The Raptors like building from within. They like bringing up these diamond in the rough, these hidden gem type players. Paul Watson may be that next diamond in the rough, hidden gem player coming in for the Toronto Raptors. If we don't want to get that free agent, we don't want an aging guy. We want a guy, instilled within the Raptors' values already, having played there for a year. Can we bring Paul Watson into that role? Take that Terrence Davis slot. Be that fourth choice in the guard depth. Get like 15, maybe 20 minutes a game with the Toronto Raptors, depending how he's playing. Can play as the 2 guard, can also play in the 3 slot as well if you want to play small. Get guys like Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell, Paul Watson at the small forward position. This is a reality in which I can conceive. I can see this happening. I can see Paul Watson progressing into this role with an opportunity to see the playoff basketball firsthand, even to experience it in 2 of the blowout games against the Brooklyn Nets. Paul Watson has seen it, he's lived it, he understands what the Raptors want to achieve as a franchise, how they play. This guy, I think, can fit into this team next year. It's time for him now. The Raptors are ready to take this next step, I think, but it's time for Paul Watson to take this next step because it's all nice putting up 19 points per game in the G League, but can he transition that good play, that efficiency, that 49% from the field, that 42% from 3, getting nearly 7 rebounds a game? Can he transition that play into the NBA? Obviously, he's not going to play at that high of a degree of quality, but can he bring something reminiscent of that? Can he bring 7, 8, 9, 10 points per game to the Toronto Raptors next season? There's a very small sample size about what we've seen of Paul Watson in the NBA. We saw that breakout game against the Denver Nuggets, and yes, that is just one game. But I think with those G League stats, the potential he's showing, the size he has, the athleticism he has, only 25 years old. Sure, it's a bit older to get started in your NBA career, but the Raptors have done a good job of finding these hidden gem type players before. We can look at the undrafted Fred VanVleet. Bringing Matt Thomas from Europe over to the Toronto Raptors, he's about that age. Bringing him over, he's got room to develop, but we know how lethal of a shooter this guy is. If we want to talk about the draft, getting Pascal Siakam, a second-team All-NBA guy, an MIP, getting him late first round, getting OG Anunoby, one of the elite defenders in the NBA, getting him in the second round, getting Norman Powell, one of our key bench pieces, a 6-man, one of our best shooters coming off, almost a 50-40-90 guy coming off the bench. Found him in the second round. The Raptors are so good at finding these players that are overlooked by others. Paul Watson was putting up less than 5 points per game in 2 seasons with the Westchester Knicks. But all of a sudden, the Raptors take him 19 points per game out of nowhere. Why can't he make another jump, make another step into the NBA? Not just starting the season as this guy, maybe not ready for that, but can we build him into that role where he is getting maybe 10 to 15 minutes per game? I think absolutely. The Raptors led the NBA in transition points last year. Paul Watson is a guy who can thrive in the transition with his great size and his great athleticism for that size. Perfect shooting guard, small forward combo. I think this guy can fit right in with our roster, slot in, be a contributor to winning basketball, and that is the key for anybody coming in. Can they contribute to the winning basketball of the franchise? I think absolutely. Paul Watson is somebody who can achieve that. With his size, he'll be able to defend guys in the 2-guard position, will be able to handle himself in the small forward position. I think he can fit within the Raptors dynamic, that switchability on defense because of how athletic he is, because of his size, because of his speed. I think this is a great match for the Toronto Raptors. I hope he can make that next step. I hope he's been getting busy, working in the lab, trying to make this NBA career happen, because there's potential there. I'm not saying this guy should be a superstar, all-star, whatever, but there's potential for this guy to be a role player for the Toronto Raptors, and it is exciting to see somebody that you developed from within come up and get those NBA minutes that they deserve. I love to see something like that, and I hope Paul Watson is a guy who fits that bill. I know I'm not alone in this, because I've seen a lot of you talk about Paul Watson in the comments, but I think this is a great option that if we lose Terrence Davis, we build from within, we get Paul Watson involved, we get this guy coming into our NBA roster. What do you guys make of Paul Watson? Have you guys seen him play in the G League? Did you like what you saw from him in the NBA? Is Paul Watson up next for the Toronto Raptors? Let me know in the comments down below. But that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are still here, please like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Sports for more content just like this. NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors 4 days a week. Hit the notification bell as well as stay up to date with all that content. Just hit 800 subscribers. We're looking to push onward and further to 900 and then get to 1,000 subscribers, but one at a time. I appreciate every single one of you who has been supporting the channel, who hit that subscribe button, who watches the videos. I really do appreciate it. It's not possible without you guys. Thank you very much. At the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.